Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your identity?
Sure, Brian Donovan, and the voice of, Brian Donovan here, Rock Lee on Naruto, and Davis on Digimon, and, et cetera, et cetera. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now I'm kind of curious, let's go back to the very beginning when you were a wee little lad. Were you
Yes.
always into acting or was there some other profession that had your fancy?
I don't know how I was when I screamed my first scream, but I suspect it was animated and loud. When I was a kid, I was kind of always the goofball and acting to some degree. But my family dynamic was very interesting because my father was deaf, if you can believe that, from a voice actor, and my little sister had Down syndrome. So I think a combination of the two, I was a lot more active when I spoke, and more visual, I think, for my dad, and also my sister, for that matter, because her communication was limited. So I was kind of always pantomiming and being silly that way to just make the visuals a little more exciting, and I use my voice a lot in different voices, I suppose, and inflections for my sister to keep her entertained too. So, and then carrying on from there, I got involved in plays and things like that pretty early on in elementary, and then high school. I took it a little more seriously, and got involved in musicals too, which I'm not incredibly musical, but it was what they offered, so I got involved in that. And then university, the same thing. I started doing more plays. What else did you want to know about my early years?
Well, I'm curious, after you went through university and everything like that, where was your first big break?
Well, what happened? I mean, I should say this because really the true start, I suppose, of my voice career, and acting for that matter, aside from the plays and musicals and such, when I was at university, when I went to John Carroll University, which is in Cleveland, Ohio. I grew up in Buffalo, but I kind of traveled down the coast of Lake Erie and went to Cleveland for school. Anyway, long story short, there was an opportunity to be a DJ on the radio station there called 88.7 WJC, and I thought that was magic. I was so excited, and so I went to the orientation, and if you could kind of prove that you had any sort of communication skills and you really love music, you pretty much had a slot, on the air. So that's what happened. I got a slot pretty early on my freshman year at school, and I became a DJ. And I was only on for 2 hours a week, so I mean it wasn't an incredible amount of time or even commitment for that matter. But that was kind of the beginning of working the mic, if you will, and pursuing, I suppose, or leading to the pursuit of this passion and this career. And I did that for 4 years when I was at school. So when that led to post-school, and I stayed in Cleveland, and I had a midlife crisis, if you will, at 22, and I saw my whole life kind of flash before me, because I was an account executive at a newspaper, and I was utterly miserable, and I thought, wow, this can't be it, and so that's when I had the bright idea of delivering a car out to Los Angeles and coming to Hollywood and actually pursuing, the arts and entertainment as a career, and so I did. I delivered a car. There was a place called Auto Drive-Away, and basically you could pay a $200 deposit. And when a car came up that needed to be delivered to where you wanted to go from the city that you wanted to start from, they give you a call. And so I registered from Buffalo or Cleveland to L.A., and lo and behold, 3 weeks later, a car came up. And it was a stick shift, though, and it was in Buffalo. And I never drove a stick before.
Oh, no.
so it was just like, oh, man, I think I'm in trouble. And so my mom, God love her, She said, well, why don't I go with you? We'll pretend that you don't have your license, that you forgot it, and I'll drive the car out of the driveway and, around the block and then, start learning how to drive a stick. And so that's what we did. We showed up at this guy's house, and his daughter had moved to Los Angeles, and she was a nurse, and she needed her car, and so I was the guy to deliver it. And so, yeah, when we rounded the bend from the corner, I jumped in and started driving a stick, and yeah, it wasn't the easiest process, but fortunately I had the hang of it by the time I got to, the Michigan line. And then I came out to Hollywood. And my first big break, I guess, wow, you never realize until you start talking about how all the stepping stones kind of come together. But going back to university really quick, I did a play in 1986. And for all your listeners, I was born in the 60s. So I'm a little older than I sound, but I did a play in 1986 at university, and in the play was Jack Riley, who is Mr. Carlin on the Bob Newhart show, and he's done a ton. He's, Mr. Pickles and Rugrats, and he's done a ton of voice stuff, and he's been in the biz a long, long time. He's he's in his mid-70s now. But we did a play together, and when I delivered this car, I called him from Las Vegas, which is where you are, and I started getting really nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody in L.A. except Jack, and, we weren't really friends, but he said, if you ever make to L.A., give me a call, and so that's when I did. I called him from Las Vegas, and his nanny actually answered. He had two young kids. And his nanny answered, and I said, is Jack there? He's like, no, he's out for the day, but can I take a message? And I said, well, it's Brian Donovan, and I did this play with him, and, a couple of years ago, and I'm moving to L.A., and I was just wondering, I was going to pick his ear and get some advice, and he said, Jack would want you to sleep on his couch, So sure enough, I ended up sleeping on Jack Riley's couch for about a week and a half, and Jack, that leads me to my first little break. It wasn't such a big break. It was a little teeny weeny break, but Jack introduced me to a casting agent, Carol Day Kimball, who used to be at a production house here in Los Angeles, and they did a lot of commercials, a lot of award-winning, kind of funny commercials, and she was the casting director over there, and so Jack introduced me, and she said, well, I can't promise you anything, but, I'll definitely keep you in mind. You got a great, young-sounding voice, and, we'll see what we can do, and about 2 months later, I got a call out of the blue, and Carol said, well, look, it's not much. It's one word in one 30-second commercial for McDonald's, but if you want it, it's yours. So I said, I'm there, So, an hour later, I was in the booth, and I was recording a McDonald's commercial, and all I had to say was ants. And that was the start of my professional acting career, and that was, if you can believe it, 20 years ago. So needless to say, I've been at it for a long time.
I will say your voice did have me fooled. I was trying to, scope you out and stalk you a little bit to get all the credits and everything, in order. And I was like, well, how old is he? Because you sound so young, and then some of your headshots you look a little bit older, and so I can't figure out where's the balance.
Well, what'd you come up with?
At the time I was thinking about 28. So.
Wow. Yeah, I could be that 28-year-old Brian Donovan's father. Yeah. No, it's it's funny because two things. I remember telling one of the administrators at university I was going to move out to Hollywood, and he poo-pooed that idea and thought I was wasting my time, and blah blah blah. And so that was one naysayer of many. So that's a caveat to follow your dreams. But the other thing was my voice has been really interesting, I guess in the spectrum of a 20-year career because, in some ways I've been very, very fortunate, to have a young voice because I've been able to play and act and do the voices of young boys, which typically, as you know, not all the time, but a lot of times, goes to women, to play especially the younger boys. And so, so in a lot of ways, my voice has been really good to me because I've been able to be and sound young for a very long time. Where it gets me into trouble is, I also have a camera career, an on-camera acting career, and so, it's just kind of what you said, that balance isn't quite there sometimes, because I sound like I'm, early to late 20s, but I look probably mid-30s, and I'm 44. So, find the balance in that. So it's been an interesting, journey, especially as I've gotten older, because, I had a lot of nice success early on, and the camera stuff, and now as I've gotten older, I'm not exactly sure where to place myself, and I don't know if they are either. So anyway. Yeah, born in the 60s. That's all I've got to say about that.
Well, it's kind of funny to me because it would seem that your sort of voice would do a lot better in animation, especially in anime, since that's niche and it's about usually, very young protagonists. So I would think that would be helpful.
Yeah, it has, and consequently, it is really helpful, and I've often been told that I have a very animated voice, so it does lend itself incredibly well to this profession and to anime and cartoon work, and as I said, it's been very good to me. I've been very very fortunate, and I probably it lends itself to, I think, I consider myself very youthful in spirit, and so that's really been helpful too, because as a lot of my voice work, especially my animation in the anime, has been young. I mean, I think Davis on Digimon at the time was 10 to 12 ish. Rock Lee's grown up a little bit in Naruto, but young. I just did one of the wolves in the animation film Alpha and Omega, and and I played Salty, and he was the young surfer dude, and so yeah, it's almost all young. The only time I really dip into an older voice is when I do more commercial work and things like that, and even my announcing on Disney, when I did all that stuff for JetX and Toon Disney, was skewed much younger too. It was more of a teenager, and it was coming up next, and we'll be right back after these messages, and that kind of stuff, So. But yeah, it's been good to me. That said, the people making the real money, are these guys that are, in a world, that really deep, menacing, the world is coming to an end voice, that kind of stuff, and they're in a whole nother category, which is pretty wild. And everyone has their niche. I mean, some people just do the trailer voice, coming up, and, they do the promos. But as you know, and I'm sure a lot of your guests, some of them have repertoires of 300 voices. And mine's definitely not that broad, but some people make a living just doing a lot of different voices, character voices. Some make a living doing their deep, rich voice, I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of young voices, but and sometimes, as I said, the mid-30s and the commercial stuff. But, I would say, and my agent would probably say, I can do anything 10 to 30, but after 30, my voice is too high, and under 10, it's a little too low. But, you find your pocket, and that's, yeah.
Well, I have to say that I believe you have to be a child at heart to be able to pull all those voices out of your pocket and to have fun with it.
Well, you do, and I think, often I say, because a lot of people ask me, how do you get in this business, or how did you get in this business, and, and I would say, certainly if you want to pursue, the voice work, and even, the cartooning, the drawing, and the illustrations, whatever it is you want to do, but certainly the arts, start at a young age and get in there and find opportunities and pursue it with all you got, especially when you're younger, because, there's really no limit when you're younger, and your dreams are boundless, and the realities of having to make a living aren't quite there, and those restraints, and so, I would very actively encourage, your listeners, anyone that wants to pursue entertainment as a career to start young, because it's really you get better at it. Like everything, whether you're sculpting clay or you're an accountant or a doctor, and unless you're a child prodigy or a savant, and you come out of the womb, freakishly talented, most people aren't. Most people have to get better at what they do, and that is just really, truly comes from, practice makes perfect, and I would just get involved, like I did. I did plays and musicals, and I gotten, the radio station at university, and and even here, I go in and out of class just to keep, that joint oiled, if you will, but yeah, definitely maintain your youth. I mean, there is some truth and some beauty to Peter Pan's take on life. I mean, there is an element of youth that I'm like, if that left me in my spirit, I'd be a bit devastated, I think, because I do see some true blue adults, and that are just gotten sucked into the vortex of adulthood, and they've lost that, and you can see it, you can tell, and there's a real cloud over them, if you will, and yeah, I mean, my youthful spirit has served me well, and I've been very fortunate. So much so that I actually voiced the Peter Pan for Disney on a few of their projects, and that was a real nice dream come true, to be honest with you, because that was it was just a real awesome experience, and especially work with Disney and just have that opportunity to play Peter Pan. was really fun.
Well, I know our fans are definitely going to keep that advice to heart, and I think we're going to take a short break here on 91.8 The Fan, but don't go anywhere, because we play everything you want, nothing you don't, and we have our fantabulous guest who will be back. So stay tuned.
Are you tired of not having a sandwich? Sarah Lane! Are you tired of knowing whether or not something is a girl or a boy? Sarah Lane! Are you tired of not getting enough zombie in your diet? Sarah Lane! Every weekend. At a time.
Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. We still have the special guest here. Yes, maybe.
Yeah. Here.
Oh yeah, he's here. You never know. I've gone back on air and been like, our special guest is right here. Beep, beep. So I checked now.
He was right here. No, I'm still here, and I'm enjoying myself immensely. Hope everyone out there is enjoying themselves. And what else you got for me, Jackie?
Well, I'm kind of curious. What projects do you have coming up that you would like the fans to know about?
Rock Lee on Naruto has been a little slow, actually, and he's tapering out significantly from the series, as most people are aware. So, I'm not really sure, and to be honest with you, I don't know, I probably only know typically a few months before you guys do what the status is, and, it's really just, I get the call, so I don't really know what's coming next. Sometimes it's surprising, sometimes it's not. So, Naruto and Rock Lee's a question mark at this point. I'm not sure what's going to happen or what's next. But, I was just in the studio yesterday, and I just did a promo for Glee for Fox, and that was a lot of fun. And, of course, it's a hit show, so it's always nice to be involved in a juggernaut like that. But yeah, I've been doing couple promos for other video games and things like that. But it's interesting with the acting world, and I'm sure a lot of your guests have alluded to this. A lot of times, and one of the things that makes it so, it can be frustrating, but mostly makes it exciting, is you just never know what your next day is going to bring. For instance, last week, Thursday I was unemployed, and Friday I was shooting a commercial for Lowe's. So you don't really know, and a lot of times you don't have much forewarning that you're going to be working or not working, for that matter. But and that's what makes it exciting, though, to be honest with you. And it's not for everyone. I mean, a lot of my friends, flat out said, "Oh man, I couldn't do it. I couldn't be freelance. I couldn't not know. I would hate that, And so I think it turns a lot of people off. But, I've kind of embraced it, and it's all I've really ever known since, my first and last full-time job, back in, the 90s. But, yeah, so that's it. I don't have a lot that I can really push or promote at this point. I was just on well, here's another crazy story too. 3 weeks ago, I got cast in the show The Event, and then 2 hours before I was going to wardrobe, the whole writing team and producers decided to rework the whole script and decided that the storyline that I was involved in was going to cost too much money, so they pulled the whole thing. Yeah, so 2 hours before I go to wardrobe, I get a call from my agent and said, just I hate to say it, but they're gonna cut it. That whole storyline's gone, and so things like that happen. Those particular scenarios don't happen very often, but they do happen. So you're about to go to the set and and it gets canceled. I mean, the good news is they had to pay me, but the bad news is I never shot it, and it would have been fun. But so it's different every day. But I am in talks right now with a show for Nickelodeon, and there's another one that I just had a third audition for. I can't really name it right now because they're in development.
And those wonderful NDAs. Yeah.
So it's a little covert and top secret, but yeah, there's a few things brewing, and I wish I could scream and shout about something right now, but I have more things brewing at this point than I do in actuality. But that's kind of the nature of the beast, really. It's so much is in development and pending. And more often than not, you can't really talk about them because unless it's an ongoing show, if it's in development, it's in development. It's part of the deal. You can't really tell any of the details. So.
Right, we understand. I'm sort of curious for the listeners out there. Is there any place on the web, like Twitter or Facebook or a website, where you promote your stuff or people can learn more?
Well, this shows my age tremendously, and I apologize to your younger viewers. I'm not a Facebooker, and I've never tweeted, and I know that's probably horrifying to most of your listeners, who probably spend quite a bit of time on both, but I just never embraced it, and I think, it really does show my age, being 44. When I got into email, I thought that was groundbreaking. And then, all this other stuff, I was like, I can't do it. I can't be bothered. I do have a website, and I'm happy to refer people to it. And it's updated periodically, with, the latest and greatest, of things I've done. But you can go to Brian Donovan, BRIAN, Donovan, DONOVAN.org. And, you can check out some of my reels, my acting reels up there, hosting reels up there, and a lot of the voice stuff that I've done is up there. The acting reel's a little dated because when I was working for Disney, I was actually under contract for 6.5 years. And part of the deal was I really had to be available to them from 9 to 6 every day. So even though I may not even work that day, I still had to be available for the call and say, hey, we need you in the studio, in an hour, to record, coming up next, or, on the next Power Rangers, and that kind of thing. So anyway, that was that. The funny thing is, one of the coolest things that happened to me in my career was when I was doing the promos and the announcing for Disney and JetX, I actually was promoting, Digimon. So not only was I in the show Digimon, I was actually promoting the show, coming up next on Digimon, and that kind of thing. So that was kind of a kick, but feel free to check out the website, and my contacts and agents are listed there too. So if anybody wants to reach out, I'm happy to have them do that through the agents, and they should be able to get me, some stuff there.
I'm kind of curious. Do you do the con circuit thing at all?
It's funny. I've never pursued it, and I've never been asked. The only people I've been asked by are my fans, and so I haven't really pursued it that much. But I suppose if you want to, promote that and get your fans and the station to get me on the short list, that'd be great. But I feel like, I just feel like I don't know. I don't like to ask for things.
That's very much a thing where you have to.
I'm not going to call. I'm not going to call one of the conventions and say, "Hey, I'm available," and get me there. And if they want to have me, I'm happy to be invited, and I'd love to pursue it. In fact, as I said, a lot of my fans, ask, and and I suppose if they ask and the conventions ask, I'd be happy to show up. I'd love it. And I love the fans. It's they're so passionate and so loyal, and it really makes doing this that much more enjoyable. In fact, one of the greatest experiences I had, and this will be my cherry on top, before I have to go, but one of the greatest experiences I had was there was a young man who I won't name just to protect his privacy, but he had the Make-A-Wish Foundation approach him. He was dying, unfortunately, and he was a great kid, and his wish was to meet some of the cast of Naruto and Naruto, of course, and Rock Lee, and it was such a gift, just as a person, but also just as an actor in this business, because often you don't really get a chance to interact with your fan base that intimately, and to have that be his wish was just a spectacular moment for me as a human being. But as I said, but also just across the board, it was kind of a really special experience I've had, and clearly one of my favorite. And so that was a really cool experience, and it was really fun because afterwards he saw us record. I took him over to Hollywood Boulevard and see the stars and the hands and the feet, and it was spectacular. It was really awesome, and then we stayed in touch, and it was a really, really pretty amazing experience. But and that's just a testament to the fans of anime. I mean, it means something to you guys, and being a part of that means something to me. It's pretty awesome.
That's so sweet. And before we let you go, I was wondering if you'd like to participate in a 91.8 The Fan tradition.
My best guess is you want to hear something in a voice. 91.8 The Fan. What do you want? What do you need?
We basically ask everyone if they'd be willing to do a radio bump for us.
Sure.
And you can do it in a voice if you want to, but essentially the line is, my name is, you insert your name, I do this, you can insert a character, or you can insert, I'm a voice actor, and you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
And you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan. All right. This is Brian Donovan. Oh, man, let me start over. Action. This is Brian Donovan. I play Rock Lee from Naruto and many others. And I'm a fan of The Fan, 91.8, and you're tuned into. And I'll go further to say that I'm also Rock Lee from Hidden Leaf Village. And what's weird about Rock Lee is he couldn't contract anything. Did you notice that? He was always so polite and proper, and it was an interesting thing that we always had to address on the show. And even the writers would forget, so they would contract, like can, and I would have to say cannot. Anyway, a little side bit for you. A little trivia, but and here's a good one here too, Jackie. I'll leave you to this. So I actually went on Wikipedia to see what they said about Rock Lee, just for fun, and they said instead of contract, it says Rock Lee never uses contraception. And I was like, contraception? What? Anyway, Rock Lee does use contraception, but he doesn't contract his words. Just to clarify.
Well, very awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was an absolute honor.
Me too. Thanks, Jackie, and thanks to all your fans and the people who listen to The Fan. And we'll do it again someday. Maybe I'll see you at a convention. Start the rally.
Definitely. And for anybody out there, if you missed any of this interview, don't fret. It'll be up on the website within the next few days. So keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan. Everything you want and nothing you don't.